What's up, hackers? Welcome back to InfoSecTube. Today we are going deep into the layer of the operation system. We are moving past a high-level code and looking at the invisible architecture that you actually keep your data safe. I mean, the process isolation and the IPC security. This is the foundation of the modern exploit mitigation. And let's start with this uh, short masterclass. I just record a video from the scratch explanation of what is the IPC and what is the process and what is how is the memory isolation work. If you didn't watch that video, please make sure you watch that video before starting this video and let's go. So when you look at your desktop, you see the illusion that, I mean, a handle of the clean app icon like Chrome, Spotify, or Discord. But the OS, I mean, in the reality, there is a battlefield of the process. And a process is simply a program that is currently running in the memory. And in the background, your OS is tracking the hundredth of the PID, I mean the process ID, managing the memory addresses and maintaining the strict hierarchy of the execution. But why do we care about separating these processes? And imagine if you are attending the old old school OS class where everything is shared. Um, the professor is just explaining everything shared one giant memory space. But if you visited a malicious website that trigger buffer overflow in your browser, that single exploit could instantly jump into your banking process or a password wallet. And in this shared memory space model, one vulnerability is a total system compromise, and there is no containment. So um, the modern OS use a memory isolation is a hardware enforced firewall. Think of the RAM like the apartment complex where every process gets into the own unit, and each process has its own private workspace containing the code, variable, heap, stack, CPU register, and these things. And even if the malware is running in the apartment next door, it doesn't have the key to your memory. The OS kernel blocks any unauthorized cross-border access. So here is the paradox. How does anything actually work? So if your processes are perfectly isolated, how does your computer actually do anything? This is a very important question. And when you click, for example, on the print in the Chrome browser, the Chrome doesn't own the printer. It has a coordinates with the print service, which talk to the driver. And we need a way for these isolated Iceland to talk without tearing down the wall of the fortress. So this is very important for security perspective. And um, the solution is IPC, or inter-process communication. Think of the IPC is a secure, armored messenger wire between the isolated process. And for example, it's a WhatsApp of the OS or Telegram of the OS. I know that WhatsApp is not secure, but you can consider it a Signal or what's Telegram of the OS. And instead of reaching into another process of the memory, which is illegal, a process send a data payload through a control channel. And as you can see in the slides. And it's just like a messaging process. So if I want to explain how process talk and what is the trade-off between each mechanism. There isn't just one way to do the IPC. It's a matrix of trade-off. The files are simple, for example, but they are slow. The shared memory is lightning fast, but but it has low security because it requires complex synchronization to avoid the chaos. The pipes and messaging queue offer the good balance, but sockets are the gold standard for the security in many environments, allowing for excellent isolation, even if the communication is somehow complex. So, from the InfoSec perspective, the IPC is a massive attack surface because it's where the high value data travel. I mean, the odd token, the password hashes, the payment amount, and if a hacker can spoof a sender, intercept the wire, and or inject the payload into the data stream, the process isolation doesn't matter anymore. The wire is often the weakest link in the chain. And to secure that wire, we need six defense gates. I mean, first, authentication, for example, verify who is talking. The authorization means check if they have a permission to perform that action. Or integrity, I mean, ensure the message wasn't modified, for example, not changing, for example, 500, 50, to 5,000 address, something like that. Or the confidentiality, it means that they encrypt the data to prevent the sniffing, or the replay protection. I mean, use nonce or timestamp so the attacker cannot just replay or a door to unlock the command. Or we need input validation. I mean, sanitize everything to prevent memory corruption, like the buffer overflow attack. So, if I want to make you more curious about things, when you encounter any IPC mechanism, whether it's a custom Linux pipes or a Windows ALPC port, you must run this checklist. Can I fake this? Or can I intercept it? Or can I replay it? Or can I modify it? Or can I crash it? And the answer is yes to any of these. Uh, this can leads to CV. So it's very important if you want to think like the hacker style. In Android, um, we have the most complex IBC environments is like the Android. Android is a zero trust environment where a hundred of isolated services like the camera, fingerprint, keystore, Wi-Fi, they just constantly exchange a billion of message, and every app on your phone is potential attacker, and they all must talk to this central service to function. And this is important because the app never talk directly to the service, they talk to the binder. And Android ignored the naive approach for letting the app talk to each other directly. Instead, it used the binder. And in the binder architecture, the Linux kernel space sits in the middle. So it means that every request an app makes to the system service must pass through a binder driver in the kernel, which is act like the ultimate mediator, I call it. Um, so as you can see in the naive approach, the user app can just directly call this system service, but in the binder architecture, there is a binder that control everything. So, why why use the kernel in this concept? Because the kernel is the only part of the system that can't be lied to, and it acts as a unforgeable post office. I mean, when, for example, a malware app or malicious app try to send a message claiming it's admin, the kernel stripe away the fake header and stamps the message with the real UID or PID of the process. And the app cannot forge this data, and making the identity theft between the processes almost I can say almost is impossible, but you can see some CV about that. So um, that's the role of the kernel here. Uh, Another thing we should consider that how binder protects your money. So this is very important question, and this create a chain of trust concept. And for example, when your bank app need to access a secure key, it tied to a Keystore service, which tied to the key mint, which tied to the T, and at very single green like icon on the diagram, as you can see, the binder is verifying the UID, checking the SELinux permission, and ensuring the message is intact before it ever reaches the secured hardware. As you can see, the bank app is just called Keystore service, Keymin, T, and secure hardware. So this is the hierarchy of the trust and chain of trust in the Android. So if I want to wrap it up, so for a user, IPC is just a fingerprint login. For us, it's a word of, for example, AD shell, dumpsys, and service calls. So you are now understanding why we isolate and why we need secure bridge to have a secure word and make the connection of the app to the services secure. So by doing this, you are, I think, now curious about how these things actually work. So this is kind of new research direction and new things that as a hacker or cybersecurity researcher you should be considered. So if you watched this video until this end, please like and subscribe to our channel InfoSecTube to go and create more video like this for security stuff. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you guys.